A perfect non-conference season for Nebraska. What more could you want? Well, apparently a lot. Welcome to the world of entitled college football fans. We get into it next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your first order.
All right, happy Monday. Nebraska's non-conference slate is over, and they are 3-0, and they've only allowed 24 points. No,
20.
Wait, how many?
20 points.
20 points. 17, right?
10. Colorado got 10.
7, 10, 3. That's 20. Okay. 20 points. They only allowed 20 points to the whole non-conference slate. They're 3-0. They're ranked. They've been ranked for 2 weeks.
This is well planned.
And yeah, I could have just read this, that was right in front of me, but I didn't. And they won 34-3 very handily. I'll own up to this, Mitch. They did not get a shutout. And Northern Iowa made sure I was wrong on the first drive of the game, but then they didn't score it all the rest of the night. So I don't know. I'd take some credit for that, I guess.
You're kind of right. You were kind of right, except not. So.
Except, yeah, exactly wrong. Yeah. So I'll own that one. All right. So we're gonna spend today going through. Obviously, we'll talk about the game and the win, but obviously we're at kind of a stopping point in the season right now. Although Nebraska's not, because they're going quick. It's a short week. As Illinois, a ranked team now, comes into Memorial Stadium for the 400th consecutive sellout on Friday. What feedback have you gotten so far, Mitch, on how people felt about that Northern Iowa game in a vacuum? Like we just mentioned, 34-3 win. It seems good on paper, but as it all played out, maybe that's not exactly what I've been hearing from the fans.
Yeah, let's just get right into that. So maybe it's like just I'm listening to the wrong post-game call-in show when I drive home. And your show, which you were not a part of this week, sadly, was off the air by the time I made my way home. So I listened to the one that you would think would be full of all of the friendly people to Nebraska football, the Nebraska Network show.
Yeah.
And it was angry Nebraskans. Maybe it was so late at night. It was after midnight, and the only people who were up, I don't know what was going on there, but you would think that the energy would be like, if it's never going to be entirely positive, you can't please everyone, but like 90% positive. I mean, like Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game in 8 years, and here they are halfway to bowl eligibility on September 15th. And it was like 70% positive energy. The rest, far too much griping. And it's kind of showing up on social media too. I just say, enjoy the prosperity, Nebraska fans. Like, you shouldn't immediately be demanding weekly greatness at this point in the Matt Rule regime. They're 15 games in, and they've looked pretty good. As you said, giving up 20 points, 6.6 a game. And Nebraska's outscored its opponents 79-10 in the first half. Like, the games haven't been close. They haven't been in doubt after the second quarter. So I think it's good for Nebraska.
Yeah, I think hot take. Nice job. I think it's good too.
I think it's good.
I could feel it as that game was developing. Just the kind of, and it wasn't the full on like the murmurs that you're so used to hearing in that stadium, but it was just like, it was more of an annoyance. And so I'd like to credit Northern Iowa for that. It doesn't, I don't think it speaks to anybody's like ability or whatever, but like I thought they put together a really nice plan against Nebraska, and it's the plan you put against a team that you can't beat unless you just simply possess the ball the entire game, and hopefully you get 1 or 2 turnovers and you could flip the thing that way. And credit to Northern Iowa. They extended drives. That first one sucked all the air out of the building. 10 minutes on their first drive, and they ended up getting 3 out of it. And it was just like, yeah, this is kind of annoying already. And then we were just off and running from there. I credit them, man. That is an annoying team. I don't think they're any good, but they're annoying.
It was the Georgia Southern plan, but it was nothing like the Georgia Southern plan, because Georgia Southern just came in and said, we are going to throw the ball all over the yard. But it was like Georgia Southern in that the only way they could get out of there is if everything went right for them. That was their only hope. And on that day in 2022, everything did go right for Georgia Southern. On this day in 2024, Nebraska won 34-3 and, was toying around with gadget plays involving Heinrich Harburg. We should have opened the show with that. We've been talking about this since early August. Like, what are they going to do? We've been talking about it since March, because we knew Dylan Raiola was going to be the starting quarterback, and like, what's going to happen with Heinrich Harburg? How are they going to use him? And then the first drive of the game, I was stuck in the elevator, by the way. This has never happened to me.
Wow.
I missed the first drive, almost the whole first drive. I saw Carter. I got off the elevator and I saw Carter Nelson catch a touchdown pass. So I didn't even know. Matt Rule mentioned after the game, to a question that I asked, that Heinrich was in the game also on the first drive. And I was like, I didn't know that, because I was stuck in the service elevator with Keith Mann, the Nebraska media relations director. So we were down on the field, and I just decided to stay down there for the tunnel walk, which I don't usually do. And I wanted to see the flyover from the field. I thought it was really cool. They were fighter jets, and I liked that. So I stayed down until the tunnel walk was over, and then I got in the service elevator, and then the governor got in the service elevator with all his security, and the guy running the buttons, like, he couldn't get the 6 pushed. We kept going back up and back down. So I missed the first drive.
Incredible. Sounds like Bob Diaco circa that one time when he didn't know he had to talk to the media, and then he said he got stuck in the elevator. So,
yeah, it happens. I'm telling you.
Totally. It totally just happens. But yeah, you missed that. I'm glad you got to see Carter Nelson catch his first touchdown. He had a nice first drive there. So did Heinrich,
I watched it today.
I don't have the stats in front of me. Did Heinrich obviously he threw a pass. Obviously he caught a pass. Did he run the ball out of the?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. I know they set him up out of the running back, position. Mm-hmm. They gave it to him the one time too. I wonder.
Rule said he was the first player he's ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Rule said he was the first player he's ever seen who had a play where he checked into catching a pass and checked into throwing a pass. So when he was playing quarterback, he checked out of a play and threw a pass, and Raiola checked into one and threw the ball to him.
Maybe next time you're stuck in an elevator with Keith, you could ask him for a note, like, when's the last time a Nebraska player threw a pass, ran the ball, and caught a ball in the same game? It's probably not that long ago, but yeah, just next time you're in there.
I'm thinking, did Thunder Collins? No. Mike Stunts? Did Mike Stunts do that? That was a long time.
Like Marlon Lucky, definitely, but there's
I used to like Marlon on the halfback pass.
They love the halfback toss pass, didn't they? Billy C loved that play. But I'm sure it's happened pretty recently, but I would just like to know the last guy. Okay. So anyway, back to the main point. This is what happens when you're a little bored during non-conference season. By the way, you talk about getting stuck in elevators and your backup quarterback running the football, and doing all these different things. So point being, and we'll have a bunch more takes here coming up on basically this part of the season, but on this game, I am not concerned about Nebraska's defense after the Northern Iowa performance. I'm just not. I think there's a lot of things at play there. Like I said, I think first off, you give them credit. They were really patient in the run game. I thought they used Nebraska's aggression against them. They weren't I kind of thought that they were just going to come in and try and ram it into the brick wall, and they didn't. They were really patient. I thought their backs did a good job there, and they did a lot of misdirection and counters and just weird stuff. It was basically a junk run offense. Mm-hmm. And credit them. It worked as far as possessing the football. But my question out of the you asked about entitlement earlier. When are we going to give Nebraska's defense the benefit of the doubt? It's been good since the second Matt Rule walked on campus. It's the 9th opponent in the last 10 Matt Rule era home games. They've allowed 14 or less. It was the 10th consecutive opponent Nebraska's held to 24 or fewer points. And that's the longest streak since they did it 14 times in a row back in 2009 and 2010, and they had all these NFL guys. Like, it's so good. It's a truly very, very good defense. And so their output is 3 against Northern Iowa, but yeah, they ran it on them a little bit and they chewed the clock off. Like, so what? Right? It just doesn't bother me at all.
No, and I also will give credit to Northern Iowa. I think they have a couple of good offensive linemen, and they have a history of producing some NFL offensive linemen, and they may have a guy or two on this group who is in contention for something similar. They didn't try to do too much with their game plan. Like, they weren't trying to get their linemen to the second level. They were mainly just like occupying Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker. And then they said, okay, we have a 240-pound back, so we're going to smash him into the second level, and we think that we can move your linebackers. So Nebraska was without Jamari Butler at one defensive end spot, who had an injury, and they held him out for precautionary reasons. And they were without Mekhi Bayer for the first half, who was serving his targeting suspension. So it worked. It worked. Like, they were able to get some backs to the second level because Nebraska's defensive line was somewhat occupied and outnumbered up front. And the linebackers, I think, could have been a little bit better on Saturday night. So it's good for Nebraska from the standpoint that this is what it's going to see in the Big Ten. Not every week, but there are teams early. Rutgers is going to try to do that. I think Illinois throws the ball a lot, but Illinois will play physical in the run game. I don't know what Purdue does. Indiana, they're just very, very, very good all of a sudden, and they do whatever they want, apparently. Oh. It's UCLA or, they play Ohio State, they'll be fine, I'm sure. I am Kurt Cignetti's biggest fan now. Wow. I mocked him. I scoffed at him at Big Ten Media Days. Now I've seen it. It's real. Nebraska is probably going to lose by 7 touchdowns when it goes to Bloomington.
Life comes at you fast. What has happened? Yeah. I can't wait to dive into this.
I didn't mean to get into the Big Ten talk yet, but
all right. So let's take a break. We'll come back and get to some of our other thoughts for the first portion of the season here. Appreciate you guys liking, subscribing, watching on YouTube, wherever you listen to the podcast. Of course, you can email the show. We're still doing these Friday mailbag shows, lockedonneb@gmail.com. You can always send us those. Send us your tweets at lockedonneb. We will be back after this. All right, it's Tapper. I want to tell you a little bit about 5 Hour Energy, a sponsor right here of this podcast. If you need to tackle a to-do list or a DIY project at home, you don't have the energy for it over the weekend, you might want to get some 5 Hour Energy. Try a 5 Hour Energy shot. Check everything off your list. And if you're like me, the list can get long, and especially when you're not, being a productive household member throughout the week. And then all of a sudden, here you are in the weekend, you need your 5 Hour Energy. So grab that. 0 sugar, convenient, portable size is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. 5 Hour Energy's website, they have flavors galore. There's something for you. Watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, plenty more. There's a flavor for you. Like I said, try them all. On the website, you have the option to build your own 12 or 24 pack. Choose the flavors, and it'll be delivered straight to your door. Go to 5 Hour Energy, number 5, hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer only valid until September 30th on one order. Cannot be used with other promotions. Not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com.
Okay, we are back on this Monday after the Nebraska Northern Iowa game. Huskers are 3-0. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, here with Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone in Omaha. Happy to have you along for the ride. Short week in Lincoln. Huskers host number 24. Number 22 Nebraska hosts number 24 Illinois in the first ranked versus ranked matchup at Memorial Stadium since 2013. It's been a long time.
That is nuts.
Yeah, first Friday night game ever at Memorial Stadium. So we are going through some takeaways, some takes, some observations from the third game of the season, the end of non-con play. One that I wanted to get to early in our discussion here, and then I started talking about elevators and all that stuff, is the impact of the true freshmen on this offense. And we mentioned that Carter Nelson scored the first touchdown of the game, a 24-yard reception. Jacory Barney had the third touchdown of the game. In between was Isaiah Nair, the senior transfer. So Barney took a page. Nebraska took a page out of the Kansas City Chiefs playbook and ran the play that the Chiefs used to get Xavier Worthy loose, the rookie out of Texas, on his second touchdown, I think, of opening week. It was the one on the ground where he just streaked around the edge, and Nebraska ran the same play against Northern Iowa, and Jacory Barney scored from 12 yards out. Matt Rule said that he maybe wouldn't have called the reverse from the 12-yard line, but it got home. Satterfield dialed it up. How about these true freshmen? Dylan Raiola, Jacory Barney, Carter Nelson emerging. One of them is the star of the offensive show. The other two are quickly emerging as big-time weapons for this Nebraska offense. I will say Nebraska has never in the history of its program had three true freshmen offensively who made this kind of an impact together.
Yeah, it's interesting how it works that way, isn't it? Because, this program, gosh, this is going in a different way than I thought it was going to go, by the way. But Nebraska's had probably, I guess, arguably a more talented freshman class that they've brought in. And some people that you thought right away that were going to make like instant impacts and, have a really, really enhanced importance on whatever football team that they were going for that year. But this group, they've been able to really clearly identify roles for these guys, I think, because of their age and because of their experience, and like they're just not asking too much of them, and we didn't identify Adrian Martinez having too much on his shoulders until, later in his freshman year, probably into his sophomore year. And maybe it becomes that way with Dylan Raiola. The quarterback is such a different animal, but I know that in his sophomore year in 2019, they had to lean on a lot of guys who were either untrustworthy or hadn't done it before. And so you're able to ease guys like Jacory Barney and Carter Nelson into the equation as you need them. Like Rule actually said this literally with Carter Nelson. We're just trying to give him tasks that he can master. We just give him one thing and then he gets it. And then, and then eventually, the whole offense, and you're one of the best guys on it because your athleticism just is able to take over at that point. So I think it really speaks to, first of all, their ability to develop, obviously the talent of those kids, but really the pieces that they have around them and how Nebraska's not really asking too much out of those guys in the early going here.
Yeah, I don't want to like go overboard on this and just make it seem like wild hyperbole, but this staff, this is their first like full recruiting class. Last year, yes, they had a few weeks to put together a class. So there were some players that they were involved with, and obviously those guys who came in a year ago are their players. But this is the first group that they were able to go out and recruit for months and study their strengths and fit to the system that Nebraska was running. It's also the first year that Nebraska has an offensive system that's on schedule and didn't have to be completely changed 2 weeks into the season because your quarterback couldn't stop turning over the ball. And here we are talking about this unusual situation where not one, not two, but three true freshmen on the offensive side at skill spots are breaking out simultaneously. They are shockingly better than the previous staff and the staff before that. And I'd say the staff before that. So going back to Pelini, at finding ways to allow these players to emerge, because you're right. Other than Dylan Raiola, it isn't like head and shoulders the best talent that they've brought in. It's just that they are finding ways to put these players in positions to succeed and capitalize on the talent that they recruited. They've recruited players like Jacory Barney before.
Yes.
And I'll even say that they've recruited players like Carter Nelson before. He's a great talent, but they've brought in great talents before at receiver, at tight end, at running back, and they've struggled, tremendously to get the ball into the hands of those players early in their career in a way where they could really help Nebraska. And then they usually end up leaving.
So let me ask you this before we take a break. Nebraska's easiest portion of its schedule is over. They won these games comfortably.
Right. I talk about this like these guys are up for the Heisman. They've played 3 games.
Okay. But at the same time, like, I think they deserve to have roles in the offense. Nebraska has had a lot. I mean, they have a lot of mouths to feed if this is the way that they want to do it. And I don't like, I guess my question to you is just open-ended. I don't know what they'll do with all of those weapons that they have at their disposal. Are their roles smaller for those guys? Are they leaning heavier on Nair and Banks, at the wide receiver spot? Are they leaning heavier on Fedoni at the tight end spot? Like, does it get pared down, the rotation of skill weapons that they have in the offense?
Boy, I think that in the case of both of these guys, but Barney, I'll start with Barney. They're going to continue to find ways to get him the ball. Like, he's electric. So
the rubber
end
man.
of story.
The rubber
yeah, right. I mean, run him on screens, run him on reverses, run him on sweep action, whatever you got to do. The little pass, hand off the front pass. I think they're going to get more creative with Jacory Barney as the year goes on. And the same thing with Carter Nelson. Like, you see what he can do, and putting him in matchups against linebackers is just not fair. And I think that'll continue in the Big Ten. So no, and that this just, does it take catches away from Jamal Banks and Thomas Fedoni? Yeah, it probably does. But the goal seemingly for everybody on this offensive side is score points, produce drives, get the ball in the end zone, win games. And if you don't have a 1,000-yard receiver from one of these seniors or somebody who catches 12 touchdown passes, that's okay. So I think the chemistry is to the point, and the selflessness, especially with a guy like Banks, who's the single-digit jersey recipient, like, he's all about the team, despite trying to use this to get to the NFL. Unless they start losing a bunch of games, this is the direction they're headed.
I can't wait to see where it lands, because I think maybe the thing that we've learned here is that we could talk a little bit more about Banks and Nair. It hasn't been wildly impressive from those guys early in the season, at least through 3 games, but maybe the guys behind them, and especially with those 2 weapons coming up, or maybe giving them more than they expected.
At least last thing I'll say, I do think that they'll rely on those 2 more. I do think that as the season goes on and they get against these veteran, technically sound defensive teams who are going to cover up and defend Jacory Barney and Carter Nelson in different ways, I do think that they're going to rely on, we'll talk about Dante Dowdell after the break. That's a tease. But I do think they're going to rely on Banks and Nair even more. All right.
We'll talk about Dante Dowdell, and I want to talk about Dylan Raiola. I got to clear out for me on Dylan Raiola. I got something to say.
Okay. All right. That's coming up next.
All right, it's Apper, and you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, which is still America's #1 sports book. But there bonus bets and great options. There's still the tokens that you can use on there every single day, profit boosts. But here's something a little bit different. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with your YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Who wouldn't love the NFL? It always delivers, especially on Sunday afternoon when there's 10 games going at once. You're going to want to have access to all of them. So place that $5 bet with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Head to FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/lockedon, and download America's #1 sportsbook today. All right, he's Mitch Sherman. I'm Connor Happer, back. Short week this week. We'll still have regular pods at regular times, though, because Nebraska's playing Friday night instead of Saturday night. So regular schedule for us this week. Get your questions in as we go on. And we'll look back at our predictions, of course, as well. at the end of the week. All right, Dylan Raiola. We kind of probably buried the lead here. He has been. I had this whole tweet typed out from the press box on Saturday night about, just what I wanted people to see it. I wanted people to visualize, like look at his stat line and what he had done through the first, 3 games of the season. All non-conference play was going to be over. And he was like a 76% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, no picks. And it was like, man, this is really, really good. I don't know that I could have dreamt up a better start. And then he tosses one to the moon and it got stolen away on a great play by that Northern Iowa player. Raiola said that he could have let him out further. He could have said it was a good ball. Like, I thought it was just a great play by that guy.
It was,
Yeah.
but I like Dylan's assessment of that because he's looking for, he's a perfectionist on that. And it was a good throw, but he could have, Jalen has the speed to go track that ball down. So he could have let him a little bit.
So he's got the 1 pick. So he's his perfect record is tarnished from that perspective, but not in the wins and losses yet. I'll say this. I watch a lot of other Big Ten football, and I have watched a lot of other Big Ten football for a long time. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the conference already. And I probably it wouldn't have been hard for you to convince me of that before the season even started, knowing his talent level and his pedigree and all that stuff. But he's checked every box that I thought he was going to check so far, and probably a couple more. And so now you imagine this world, like the formula is very clear for Nebraska football. I think if Nebraska's running the ball, he's getting protected. They have that great defense. I don't see why Nebraska can't make a run at something big, because they have a guy who has the ability to process as quick as he can, that very few in the league have, very few in the country have. And he's advanced, obviously. And then once you're able to do that, you can then let the arm talent take over. Like, he's the best combo, like the combos of that's what a quarterback is. And he is, he's just about as good as it gets. So, I mean, you look around the league and his stats aren't gaudy compared to anybody else's, but he's closer in line with some of those top guys, the Dylan Gabriels of the world and whoever else you want to throw in that category than he is to the, I don't know, Braden Locke,
Tyler Van Dyke.
Yeah, Tyler Van Dyke. Yeah, we both named Wisconsin quarterbacks. So yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be one of the dudes in this league.
I saw the tweet from Amy Just on Saturday Night Late. Again, credit Keith Mann, star of the show. Dylan Raiola, first Nebraska quarterback in 3 consecutive games to go over 70% completion rate since Jeff Quinn in 1980. Wow. Are you kidding? These are the first 3 games of his career. I realize he's not playing, Wisconsin, Penn State, and Iowa defensively, but these are the first 3 games of his career. And I wouldn't even say that he's played great.
I know.
I would say he's played within himself.
There's more that he could give you. Like, that's the positive part about the first 3 games.
Yeah. The receivers aren't playing great. They're playing okay. And Dylan's playing pretty good. The best thing he's doing is not turning it over a lot one time. He's making smart decisions, but I'm ready, down the road to see what it looks like when he really opens it up. And the offensively, from a game plan point of view, they allow him to open it up, and he makes throw after throw, like slicing through the heart of defenses. We've seen when he gets the chance to make really difficult throws, he puts them on the money for the most part. His accuracy is outstanding. So when he does more of that, and that'll come with some risk, and it probably won't be until, well, it might not be till next year. But it depends how the games, how the flow of the season works. I know originally, the thought was like, let's get through this first year and give him opportunities to succeed, put him in good spots, not put too much on his shoulders. And then in his sophomore year, he can be face of the program, Heisman candidate. I'd be interested to know, like in an honest moment with the coaches, if that timeline is accelerated because of how advanced he is and the things he's doing that even they didn't expect a few months ago.
I think it is. I to answer that question, I think it is. And then I think you look around at the talent on the rest of the team and you're like, whoa, we're going to lose 15 starters next year to graduation. So maybe it's time to go right now. I think that's part of the reason behind why they said at the beginning of the year, hey, we're going to give him the full plate. Like we want him to be doing the things that he's going to be doing as a junior. We're going to be asking him to do as a junior right now. And if he makes mistakes, he makes mistakes. But I think they feel like they have a group around him. And you only get so many shots like this. So yeah,
we'll be talking in
good shape.
Yeah, we'll be talking in December and January about how Dylan Raiola's presence is going to allow Nebraska to attract a different kind of player from the transfer portal. So even though they're going to lose a lot of starters, there's some places they're probably going to upgrade because they have Dylan Raiola. Last thing before we cap this show and officially move forward into the Big Ten portion of the season, that will start with Matt Rule's press conference today on Monday around noon. And then players, coordinators talking to us on Tuesday. I want to say something about Dante Dowdell and another player that the Nebraska coaches have pushed along at the right pace. We talked about the true freshman. He's like a true freshman because he was not used at Oregon last season as a true freshman. New to Nebraska, comes in and, had a bit of a slow start last spring. And you look up after 3 games, and I think he's clearly Nebraska's best every down back. Ramir and Emmett Johnson can do some things for Nebraska that are very important on third down. They talked about Emmett Johnson as the closer. I like that role for him where he comes into games late. Dowdell's like the starter in more ways than one, but he's a hammer. And he's the guy that Mark Farley, the Northern Iowa coach, said that they had the most trouble with. Not Raiola. Sure, he was running the show, but he was most impressed with, he said, the back. And he's talking about Dante Dowdell. So someone to watch. He only had 6 carries in the game. And he made an impact. So excited to see what Nebraska gets out of him as Big Ten play gets underway.
Well, I think it's a pretty clear pecking order. Dowdell's the first guy, and then I'd say there's a number 2, I guess, Johnson and Johnson, the shampoos, and then Gabe Irvin's the 4th guy. And I think they try. I really think they like them all. It's just that Gabe Irvin's the 4th guy. Somebody had to be the 4th guy.
Yeah, I thought this when I was watching. I just don't think that Gabe Irvin's got it all the way back.
Maybe
the hip injury. He's had a knee injury. That's so tough as a running back to come back from the things that he's had. Great teammate, and I think there's a way for him to give them some things this season, but he just doesn't quite look like the same player that we saw before he had those injuries.
Yeah, they're giving him a lot of short, like the really, really short yardage stuff. At least at this point in the year, we'll see. It's going to be hard to get.
Maybe he'll get healthier.
It's going to be hard to get all 4 of those guys carries though going forward. So we'll see how it looks. All right, that's it for us today. Appreciate you guys listening as always. Thank you for making us our first listen. Now we got a second listen for you. As of this morning, it's the Locked On College Football Podcast. You can go check that out, and the link to that podcast is right here in the description of this one. So just scroll on down and make that your second listen. That is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Of course, your team every day.